Today we're talking about your body and we're looking at the rotation in the backswing and the downswing, and I'm going to discuss the most common faults that I see and, more importantly, some fixes for those faults. So welcome back to the Forest of Arden, and welcome to all you Golf WRX viewers as well. Today we're focusing on rotation and some of the common faults that I see from the recreational amateur golfers that I see coming to me for lessons, which gives them issues in their golf swing with ball striking, with flight control, with curve, all those kind of things that many of you will struggle with as well. So in today's video, you're going to be learning about setup and how that can hugely influence your body's movements in the backswing. You're going to be looking and learning a little bit about the legs and the hips and how they are influential in the rotation. And we're going to be looking at something called side bend on the downswing, which for many of you could well be the missing part in your golf swing to help you hit those all elusive flushed golf shots. So just before we get into that, if you're new here, you're not a subscriber, it is absolutely free to become a member of this community. There is a link in the description box down below, and there's also a clickable link at the end of the video as well if you'd rather wait for that one. And whilst you've done that, just give that little bell icon a click as well. That just means that you won't miss any of the upcoming videos. You'll just be notified when I do post a new video. So rotation, we all have to, from a starting position, we all have to kind of move the body into the backswing and we have to move the body into the through swing. But how we do that really influences the golf club, how that moves around your body. And if we influence the golf club, we influence the impact and obviously the ball flight. So what I really like within my coaching is really to get someone's body movement pretty solid, get them moving their body well, because I often see that once the body moves well, the golf club kind of finds its own place around the body. So as I said, we're going to cover three really common faults that I see and some fixes for that. So the first real fault that I see when we're looking at rotation is actually something in the setup and how a golfer sort of almost primes their body, if you like, for that rotation. Let's say I take a starting position and my trail hip starts off back and higher than my lead hip. What that's really going to promote is it's really going to promote a movement which kind of resembles something like this, where you can see that my hips have had this lateral movement off the golf ball. My upper body gets tipped the wrong way. I tend to under rotate a little bit. And, you know, hopefully for many of you, you'll recognize that as not so much a desirable position. So that little demonstration I gave you there would be fairly common. Probably not to that extreme, but I often see this sort of starting position here where the trail hip is a little bit too back, a little bit too high, and what you probably can't see from that camera angle, it really gets my spine into a very unnatural position because I've got my trail hip higher, but probably would still have my trail shoulder lower. So we get that very, very sort of funny look through the body. And as I say, from here, it becomes very difficult to get the body moving correctly in the backswing. So the little exercise I want you to go through, if you feel this is you, or even just to check whether this is you, get yourself set up to a golf ball and just stand up dead straight this way. So when I stand up straight, I should have fairly level hips, fairly level shoulders. And then from here, place the golf club in front of me, and I just want to create a little bit of a bump in my hips. You can see that's a very, very small amount. My trail hip is now marginally lower, and we are talking marginally, and my trail shoulder gets a little lower as well. From there, I can drop down to my starting position. Now, what we should see from that setup, especially with an iron when the ball is on the ground, is those hips should look as if they're fractionally closer to the target. And again, we're talking fractions, and we should have the impression that the lead hip is marginally higher. We should have this very, very slight upper body tilt away from the target, and those little checkpoints, along with the trail shoulder being slightly lower, would be really, really good for you to look for in your golf swing. From there, it's much easier for us to make our rotation into the backswing and start to get that body primed for the downswing. So the first common fault that I see is just a setup issue, which really makes the body kind of want to make some poorer moves as we rotate back. The second fault that I see when we're looking at rotation and pivot is just how a golfer uses the hips and uses the legs. So from a starting position, if I was to simulate a backswing, what you see here is a lot of movement in my knees and a fair bit of movement in my hips. Now, the rotation in the hips is a rotation on an angle. My trail hip is much higher than my lead hip. And you'll notice that that is reflected very slightly in my knees as well, where my lead knee is slightly lower than my trail knee. You'll also notice that this leg has reduced in its flex. It's not quite straight, but it's gone towards straight. And this one has increased in flex, and my knee has kind of started to point more in towards the golf ball. we'd often find that the golfers who don't extend this trail leg, who don't get this trail hip working back and behind them, will have a more lateral movement off the golf ball, and they will often have a under-rotated lower body. Now, an under-rotated lower body, as you can imagine, gives you an under-rotated upper body. So our options are we make a very short golf swing, or we start to let those arms flex and collapse to get that club into a kind of fuller position, but the radius of the swing is compromised, and then from here it's going to be more difficult to deliver that club efficiently. So what I'd really like to do to kind of sense this is just take a golf club, place it across your hips, and then just almost focus on one side of that golf club. So I'm going to focus on this side here, which is the grip end, and I'm just going to make some movements where I focus very much on trying to get this grip higher and towards the target. So you'll see from those camera angles that as I make a rotation, that grip moves higher and towards the target. What that does is it enables my hips to rotate freely on an angle, and that's then reflected in what my legs have done. A good lower body rotation in the knees and the hips for me is really, really important. It's one of the things I do really look for in a golf swing, because it really helps everything above it work well, and it really helps lots of things in the golf swing, like your ability to shift pressure, your ability to drive the handle forward, your ability to get the club maybe moving more from the inside. All these things become a little bit easier when those legs work a little bit better like that. So great little simple drill, club across your hips and just work on one of these ends, whichever it is, and working up towards the target, versus what you might see is it kind of works away from the target, doesn't really go behind me, doesn't go higher. Those are certainly the things that we want to avoid. Okay, last thing is to do with the rotation of the downswing, and it's the movement that we don't see enough golfers have in their swing, and that movement is side bend. What is side bend? Take a golf club, pop it across your shoulders, keep your hips as still as you can, and drop your trail shoulder towards the ground. This is what we call side bend. My right side is bending towards the ground, so I'm narrowing the distance between my trail shoulder and my trail hip. Now let's go ahead and simulate the start to a downswing. Up to the top, and as we start the downswing here. Now at this point in my golf swing, I do have that side bend that we were talking about. So let's move myself into a position and reduce that side bend. Now you can see how that's a very, very different look to my delivery position, because I've taken out the side bend. My trail shoulder is now not as close to my trail hip as it was. If I put that back in, my trail shoulder down towards my trail hip, suddenly we get a look that we'd consider a little bit more desirable and something that looks a little bit more like the elite golfers that we see. So if you don't have enough side bend in your downswing, the chances are the golf club is going to stay very high and it's going to move out towards the golf ball too soon. The golf club will at some point make its journey down towards the golf ball. That journey can often become too late. We get this very steep approach. The golf club travels a little bit left. Very often that golfer senses that, they start to jump up. These are the golfers who struggle with strikes, they struggle with fades, they struggle with pulls, they struggle with weak shots, and they struggle with rotation through the golf ball. So here's a great little exercise to help you add in some of that side bend. Again, you're going to take a golf club, you pop it across your shoulders, and I want you to have the grip end more extended out away from the golf ball, so you can see that the club head is more on my lead shoulder. And what I really want you to do is, from the top of the golf swing, imagine that you're going to hit the inside back of the golf ball. So when I'm looking at that golf ball, this is the back, I'm looking at the inside back of the golf ball. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and hit that part of the golf ball with the grip end of the golf club. So it's going to look and feel a little bit like this. So I really kind of feel like I'm trying to get the grip more into the inside back of that golf ball. If I make my downswing and I don't have enough side bend, I really sense that grip going more out towards the golf ball, and then when it does move down towards the ball, I feel like it's more going to hit the outside of the golf ball. That would be very, very common from those slicers, those faders, those over-the-top golfers. So this is a great little exercise. Notice I'm still moving my legs, but for me, it's the side bend which helps that golf club move down, and then as I rotate, I feel like I can get the grip to the inside back of the ball. So up to the top, inside back of the ball, that gives me the side bend that I require, which really helps with my delivery of the club to the golf ball. So those are three sort of rotational body faults that I see quite commonly. Now, You may not suffer from all 3 of those. You may suffer from 1, 2 of those, whatever it may be. These aren't drills that we want you to go try at the range. These are things that you can do if you know you suffer from that issue. So if you know that your setup is incorrect, try that little exercise. If you video your golf swing and you don't see you have enough side bend, try that little exercise. These aren't things that we want to try and see what works. These are fixes for faults that you know you have. So your job following this video may well be to go away, video your golf swing, take a look at it and see whether you have any of these faults. If you do, you can go ahead and apply the right kind of fix. So, a lot of talking, I apologize for that. Let's go ahead and hit one. I've only got a 6 iron here. But like I said at the start, if you can get your body moving well, there's a very, very good chance that lots of other things will work well around that. Thank you very much for watching. Really hope there were some things in that video which helped you. If you know someone you play golf with who struggles with some of those positions, please share this video with them. I'm sure it'll help them. And also please leave me a comment, give this video a thumbs up if you did like it, click that subscribe button, and hopefully we will see you back here again for another video very soon. Thanks for watching.